The Dave Ramsey debate seems to continue on. So in this video, I'd like to offer some clarification. What we want to do is somebody's reached retirement age, they have $1 million. Let's see how that might last using Dave Ramsey's 8% rule compared to some of the other ones. Let's begin by saying in retirement, you have expenses of $8,500 you're planning on. You're getting $1,833 in Social Security, which leaves you needing $6,667 out of your nest egg, which is 8% using Dave Ramsey's 8% rule. If you're starting with $1 million, you'd be taking out 80,000 here, you'd be taking out 80,000 here. Now, what we're going to do in this column is we're going to take the 8% out of the remaining balance each year. So it's not from the initial $1 million, it's from the remaining balance after the stock market does what it does, and you take that yearly amount out. So that's going to be changing depending on what year you pick on. Like in 1990, it went down a little bit, so you had 889,000. Whereas in Dave's scenario, you get 12%, you take 8% out, and you get left with $1 million. You see how important that first initial year is. And just to show you the abrupt change, if you go to the year 2000, you're down to 464,000 after 3 years. So you got 464,000 left. In Dave's scenario, since you're getting 12% and you're only taking 8% out, it's grown to 1.311 million. But again, did you really get 12%? No, you're down 9, down 11, down 22. Anyway, that's what I want to show you. We're going to look at somebody, the 4% rule. You have $1 million. You can withdraw $3,500 a month and never run out of money. Let me update this to show you over the last 100 years, withdrawing $3,500 a month only one time, and that was 1929, which is right here. You can see 1929 withdrawing just $3,500 and never raising it at all, never giving a COLA. That was such a bad run. Those 4 down years knocked it down so bad, down to 280,000 after 4 years, that in the 18th year you ran out of money. So that's the only time in the last 100 years you would have run out of money withdrawing 3,500, which is basically 4%. So the 4% rule works for the last 100 years. But do you see a problem with that? 3,500, how much are we needing? We're needing 6,667 a month. We're needing 80,000 a year, not 40,000 a year or 42,000 a year. So what do you do? What do you do? You have to either raise this up to like something like 2 million. And this is, I think, maybe Dave's point was, you get to $1 million and you're still told it's not going to be enough because you run out of money. Well, look, you have to raise it to 2 million. Then the 4% rule, you could instead of 3,500, you go ahead and do 7,000 because you got double the amount. And the only time you run out of money is in 1929. I probably shouldn't stay on 1929 because all the other ones there's millions and millions and millions. Because you start out with twice as much, so you can take out the twice as much, it'll be 7,000. Again, we're trying to retire on 66, 67, and yet you can see if you only have $1 million, you can only withdraw 3,500 and be guaranteed not to run out of money, except in the year 1929, of course. So what do? Do you give up? Which I think maybe that was Dave's point. I need 66. I need almost $7,000, and I can only take out 3,500 to be guaranteed that my money would last. Well, obviously, what we do here is start raising this up a little bit farther. Let's raise it. Okay, this is the one time you run out of money. Let's say you took 5,000 a month out. Still not the 66, 67. 5,000 a month on $1 million. You're running out of money with some of these amounts, but really we need to stick with the 6,750. All right, well, let's go 6,500. 6,500. How many times you run out of money with $1 million over the last 100 years? Most times you wouldn't. Most times look at these amounts. 3 million, 5 million, 2 million, 4 million, and going up to 1935, you get up to 12 million because the returns were so good. Let's look at that 1935. Look at these numbers. They're just going straight atmospheric. You had some down years, but You had such good years, up 47, up 33, up 31, that by the time you got to the 30th, or after 20 years, you have 4 million. Again, you're starting with $1 million. So yeah, most of the time you'd be in very good shape, but do you want to risk it? We might have a run like the Depression years, or we might have a run like 2000, right here where you run out of money. 2000, 1999, 2000, 2001. If you're willing to take that risk or deal with it accordingly, so when the down years do come, you're taking out 6,500. Let's go back to this. You run into a stretch in the next 15 or 20 years, especially if the next 3 years are like these kind of returns, you're going to have to cut back or you're going to run out of money. So that's when you would have to start going, okay, instead of 6,500, maybe I want to take 4% less of that. And it looks like your money would last. No, it'd still be running out in about the 17th year. How far do you want to cut back? I want to cut back 5%. So you start out with 6,500, you said you needed, but by the time you get down here, it just doesn't work. You're running out of money eventually. So you have to decide whether you're going to go with the 8% rule, which looks like in Dave's scenario, yeah, it works every time. Why? Because he's just building up this by 12% every time. He's not taking into account that you're not getting that 12% every year. If you start out with these down years, sequence of return risk, you're going to be knocked down so fast. You're going from the 66, 67, you can only be taking out 3,095 because the balance is way down here and you're taking 8% of that. You're down to 3,000 a month, which is less than half of what you were planning on. So that's the scenario if you do the 8% run. And that's why there's such a dilemma, why people were so upset. But if you look at the averages, you're going to be just fine, even doing the 8% run, because so many times, but like 90% of the time, you're going to be in great shape. But you just don't know when these down years are going to hit. Can anybody guarantee you're not going to start out with these down years? Can anybody guarantee you don't start out? Let's just see what 1973 and 74, because that was always a bad downturn too right here. We saw how that devastated and of course the depression year is devastated, but there was another time, usually just 1 year you can be okay, but if you have 2 down years, especially with these kind of extremes, 14 and down 26, but let's just see where somebody might be. 1973, 1974, given this scenario, yeah, you're just fine because the returns came back so well. So even the 6,500 during the 73 and 74 years, you would have been fine. As we saw here, I guess I could have just looked at this column again. The only times you would have run out of money in Dave Ramsey's scenario was the Depression years and 1999, 2000, and 2001. And so if you can risk that, if you can live with that risk, and knowing that if it would happen like it did in year 2000, that you'd be willing to cut way back from 6,500. Because here you're running out of money. See how you're running out of money? Staying at 6,500, you can start taking less out, then your money lasts longer. But anyway, hopefully these numbers make sense to you. Again, I think people get confused because just because we say you have to worry about these potential down years, they would be devastating. Most of the time, you aren't going to have that in the last 100 years. Most of the time, you're going to have millions of dollars after 20 years, even taking out this 7.8 or 8%, starting with $1 million. But if you do have those down years, what they were saying is the 4% rule would say 3,500, and then your money will last. But 3,500 isn't what I need. I need 6,600. So that's why they say I don't have near enough with $1 million in the 4% rule. I do have it with the 8% rule if I can stomach these down years initially and plan for them accordingly. If they happen to hit, then I would have to do some major cutting back. Again, this is what we're looking at. Running out of money in a short period of time if we have a stretch like this. So you'd have to cut from the 6750, which is what you're planning on. You'd have to cut way down on it, especially after 2008. You're down to 5,000 and some. And even you're just running out of money. So hopefully these numbers make sense. This channel is called $1 Million Made Easy. I'm trying to bring some clarification to this Dave Ramsey 8% rule because it's caused such debate and consternation among people. I'm just showing you, can you live with this potential of having some down years where you might run into some trouble and have to really cut back? But in most cases, you can be just fine with the 8% rule. So you don't have to try to save more than $1 million. thinking, oh, if I only have $1 million, I'm going to run out of money. Only in these certain circumstances are you going to run out of money. But can you live with that? Again, our channel is called $1 Million Made Easy. Please subscribe. Tell your friends about these numbers. We'll just keep trying to run them and straighten out what people might be misunderstanding. Thanks for watching.